Sweat beads on Lena Carter's brow as she shuffles through Dallas's chaotic airport, 7 months pregnant, her backpack sagging. She boards a packed Seattle-bound flight, craving rest, when Marissa Vaughn, a sharp-eyed flight attendant, looms over her. With a sneer, Marissa dumps ice-cold water across Lena's lap, barking, "Legroom's not for you people." Gasps erupt. A phone flashes, but the pilot's voice cuts through. "We're diverting. This just got federal." Lena's soaked, stunned, her fight igniting. What's next for her? Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. And if you stand for justice, hit like, subscribe, and join us for more gripping tales. The plane jolted to a stop on the tarmac in Phoenix, the mid-July sun blazing outside at a punishing 98 degrees Fahrenheit, turning the cabin into a pressure cooker of recycled air and rising tempers. Lena Carter sat in her soaked seat, the icy water from Marissa Vaughn's attack now a clammy film on her leggings, chilling her skin despite the heat pressing against the windows. Her swollen belly ached under the tight seatbelt, 7 months of pregnancy making every shift a labor. But her eyes burned with a fire that outmatched the desert sun. She wasn't just cold, she was furious, her hands trembling as she clutched her phone, the only weapon she had left after that public humiliation. Around her, passengers shifted awkwardly, some stealing glances, others pretending to scroll through their screens, but the air crackled with unspoken judgments. Marissa stood near the galley, her uniform crisp, her lips curled into a faint smirk as she whispered to a colleague, tossing her blonde hair like she'd already won. Lena unbuckled her seatbelt, wincing as the fabric dug into her stomach, and stood, her voice cutting through the hum of the cabin like a blade. "I want an apology. Now." Her words were steady, though her chest heaved with the effort of holding back a scream. She pointed at Marissa, whose smirk faltered for a split second before hardening into something uglier. "You don't get to pour water on me, call me you people, and act like it's nothing. Say you're sorry." The cabin fell silent, a dozen pairs of eyes swiveling between the two women. A man in a wrinkled polo 3 rows back muttered, "She's making a scene," loud enough for Lena to hear, and a woman with a toddler nodded, clutching her kid like Lena was a threat. Marissa stepped forward, arms crossed, her voice dripping with condescension. "I'm not apologizing to you. You stretched your legs into the aisle, endangered everyone. I did my job. Maybe if you'd followed the rules, this wouldn't have happened." Lena's jaw tightened, her pulse thudding in her ears. She could feel the weight of every stare, the assumptions piling up like bricks on her shoulders. Your job? Your job is to humiliate a pregnant woman? To single me out because I'm black?" Her voice rose, raw and unshakable, and she hit record on her phone, holding it up so the lens caught Marissa's pinched face. "Say that again. Tell them how you did your job." Marissa flinched, her eyes darting to the phone, then back to Lena, but she didn't back down. "You're the one causing trouble. I told you to move your feet, you didn't listen. That's a safety violation. You're lucky I didn't have you removed sooner." The lie was so blatant it stung, but before Lena could fire back, the cabin door hissed open, and 2 airport security guards stormed in, their boots thumping on the carpeted floor. They were broad-shouldered, faces set in stone, and their gazes locked on Lena like she was a suspect in a lineup. The taller one, his badge glinting under the overhead lights, barked, "Ma'am, step off the plane, now." Lena froze, her phone, still recording, capturing the way they loomed over her, ignoring Marissa entirely. "Me? She's the one who assaulted me. Look at me, I'm soaked." She gestured to her drenched clothes, her belly straining against the wet fabric, but the guard's expression didn't soften. "We've got a report of disorderly conduct. You're coming with us." Disorderly conduct. The words hit her like a slap, twisting the truth into something unrecognizable. She glanced around, searching for support, but most passengers avoided her eyes, a few nodding like they'd expected this all along. A white-haired woman in a floral blouse whispered to her husband, "She should have just sat still." And Lena's stomach churned. Jamal's voice broke through the haze, sharp and desperate from the back of the plane. "Hey, leave her alone! She didn't do anything!" He shoved past a row of seats, his lanky frame tense with fury, but the second guard blocked him, hand on his radio. "Sir, stay back, or you're coming too." Lena shook her head at him, mouthing, "I'm okay," though she wasn't, not even close. She grabbed her backpack, the strap slick with sweat, and followed the guards, her wet shoes squelching with every step. Marissa watched her go, that smirk creeping back, a silent victory etched into her features. The heat blasted Lena as she stepped onto the jetway, the guards flanking her like she was a prisoner, and she kept her phone rolling, capturing their stony silence, the way they didn't even glance at Marissa. This wasn't about safety. It was about her skin, her presence, her audacity to exist in a space they didn't think she belonged. They hustled her through the terminal, past gawking travelers and a janitor mopping the floor, into a small office near the gates. The air conditioning buzzed, too cold against her damp clothes, and she shivered as the taller guard tossed a clipboard onto a metal desk. "Sit. We're sorting this out. We're sorting this." Lena eased into a hard plastic chair, her belly pressing against her thighs, and kept recording, angling the phone so it caught his sneer. "Sorting what out? I'm the victim here. She poured water on me, insulted me, and you're treating me like I'm the problem." He snorted, leaning against the wall, his partner scribbling something on the clipboard. "Lady, we've got a statement from the crew. Says you were disruptive, refused to comply. That's what we're working with." Lena's breath caught, the injustice sinking in deeper. They hadn't even asked her side, hadn't bothered to check the soaking evidence on her lap. She was black, pregnant, and loud, so she was guilty. She uploaded the video right there, her fingers shaking as she tapped out a caption. "This is what Horizon Airways does to black women. Watch." The upload bar crawled, the signal weak in the concrete box of an office, but it posted, and within minutes her phone buzzed with notifications. 10 views, 50, 100. She refreshed, watching the numbers climb, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and defiance. The guards didn't notice, too busy muttering about troublemakers, but she saw it. 10,000 views in under an hour, comments flooding in, people typing, "This is disgusting," and "sue them." She leaned back, a flicker of triumph warming her chest. Maybe this would be enough. Maybe the world would see. The door swung open, and a supervisor in a Horizon polo strode in, his face a mask of corporate calm. "Ms. Carter, you're free to go. No charges, just a misunderstanding." He handed her a folded towel, like that fixed anything, and she stood, wiping her hands, her phone still buzzing. "A misunderstanding. Your employee assaulted me, and you dragged me off a plane for it." He shrugged, avoiding her eyes. "We're looking into it. You can board the next flight." She nodded, clutching her backpack, and stepped into the terminal, Jamal rushing to her side, his arm around her shoulders. "You okay, baby?" he whispered, and she forced a smile. "I will be." But as they walked toward the gate, her phone buzzed again, this time with an alert. She opened it and her stomach dropped. Horizon Airways had flagged her video, slapping a misconduct label on it, and the platform locked her account, the footage vanishing from public view. 10,000 people had seen it, but now it was gone, erased like it never happened. She stared at the screen, the weight of their power crashing over her. This wasn't just Marissa. This was a machine, a system rigged to bury her. Jamal squeezed her hand, his voice tight. "They can't do that, can they?" She didn't answer, her mind racing, replaying Marissa's smirk, the guard's sneers, the supervisor's shrug. They could, and they did. She refreshed her email, hoping for a glitch, but instead found a message from an unknown number, slipped into her inbox like a ghost. No subject, just 6 words that sent a chill down her spine. "They'll bury you. Fight harder." She showed it to Jamal, his eyes narrowing, and she felt the ground shift beneath her. This wasn't over. It was barely starting. Horizon hadn't just silenced her video. They'd declared war, and whoever sent that text knew it. She pocketed her phone, her soaked clothes sticking to her skin, and looked at Jamal, her voice a low growl. "They think they've won. They're wrong." He nodded, his jaw set, and they moved toward the gate, the buzz of the terminal fading into a dull roar. Lena's fight was alive, pulsing in her veins, but the enemy was bigger than she'd imagined, and they were already swinging back. The Phoenix police station smelled like stale coffee and bleach, a squat brick building baking under the relentless July sun. Its holding room a claustrophobic box with flickering fluorescent lights. Lena Carter sat on a metal bench, her wet leggings clinging to her thighs, the chill from Marissa Vaughn's ice water attack now a distant memory beneath the sweat beading on her forehead. 7 months pregnant, her belly strained against her damp shirt, every breath a quiet battle against the weight pressing on her lungs. Her phone lay silent in her backpack, locked out after Horizon Airways killed her viral video. But the sting of that loss fueled her dark eyes locked on the door. What kind of system drags a soaked pregnant woman off a plane and calls her the problem? She shifted, wincing as her back twinged, and replayed the last hour. Marissa's smirk, the guard's sneers, the 10,000 views snuffed out like a candle. Could they really erase her truth that fast? The door creaked open, and a burly officer swaggered in, his badge reading Sergeant Daniels, his gut testing the buttons of his uniform. He tossed a manila folder onto the table, its edges curling from the heat, and fixed Lena with a look that said he'd already judged her guilty. Lena Carter, right? We've got a complaint from Horizon Airways, disorderly conduct on Flight 173. Care to explain? His tone was lazy, almost bored, but his eyes gleamed with something sharper. Lena straightened, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Explain. Your people pulled me off that plane after a flight. Attendant dumped water on me and called me you people. I recorded it. 10,000 saw it before they shut me down. That's what you should be explaining. Daniels chuckled, a dry, grating sound, and leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Yeah, I heard about your little video. Also heard you refused to follow crew instructions. That's a safety issue. Pregnant or not, you don't get a free pass. Lena's fists clenched, her nails digging into her palms. Was this guy serious? Safety issue? She assaulted me. I asked for an apology, and you're sitting here acting like I'm the criminal. Look at me, I'm still wet. She gestured to her clothes, the damp fabric a glaring testament, but Daniels barely glanced, his smirk widening. Should have stayed home then, sweetheart. Flying that far along? Risky move. The casual venom in his words hit her like a punch, a reminder that her pregnancy, her blackness, made her a target twice over. She opened her mouth to fire back, but the door burst open again, and Jamal stormed in, his mechanic's jacket wrinkled. From the rush, his face a mask of fury. What the hell's going on? You can't hold her like this. He stepped toward Lena, but Daniels blocked him, hand hovering near his holster. Back off, buddy. She's detained until we sort this. Sort what? Jamal snapped, his voice rising. She's the victim. That flight attendant's the one you should be grilling. Lena reached for his arm, her touch calming him just enough to keep him from swinging. Jamal, I've got this, she whispered, though her heart pounded. Daniels flipped open the folder, pulling out a single sheet, Marissa's neat handwriting scrawled across it. Got a statement here says she was verbally aggressive, threatened crew safety. That's what we're working with. Lena's stomach dropped. Verbally aggressive? The lie was so bold it almost made her laugh, but the reality sank in fast. Marissa had twisted the story, and these cops were eating it up. That's not what happened, she said, her voice low, controlled. She poured water on me, insulted me. There were witnesses. Daniels shrugged, tossing the paper back into the folder. Witnesses say a lot of things. You're free to go, no charges for now. Lena stood, her legs shaky but her resolve ironclad, and grabbed her backpack. Jamal wrapped an arm around her, guiding her out, the station stale, air giving way to the furnace of the parking lot. She checked her phone as they walked, the locked account still a dead end, but a new notification popped up. Horizon Airways official statement, pinned on every social media platform. We regret the inconvenience on Flight 173. The passenger's aggressive behavior disrupted service, and our crew acted to ensure safety. We're investigating. Aggressive behavior. The words burned into her retinas, a public slap that turned her into the villain. "They're lying," Jamal growled, kicking a pebble across the asphalt. "They can't just rewrite it like that." But they could, and they had. Lena refreshed the page, watching comments pile up. Typical entitlement. Should have followed the rules. Crew did their job. Her chest tightened. How many believed this over her video? They climbed into Jamal's beat-up sedan, the vinyl seat scorching from the sun, and Lena scrolled through her notifications, her breath catching as the numbers shifted. The video might be gone, but drosh or justice for Lena was sprouting. A few hundred. Posts from strangers who'd seen it before the takedown. "This is insane," she murmured, showing Jamal. "People are fighting for me." He grinned, starting the engine. "Told you, baby. They can't hide this." But as the car rumbled to life, her phone buzzed again, and she opened a news app, her hope curdling. Bots had flooded the hashtag, drowning it with filth. "Go back where you came from. Another race card scam. Shut up and sit down." Thousands of posts, automated and vicious, smothered the support in a wave of hate. She dropped the phone into her lap, staring out the windshield as Phoenix blurred past, the weight of it crushing her. Who was behind this? How deep did this go? Inside Horizon Airways' gleaming Seattle headquarters, 30 floors up, Victor Grayson sat in his corner office, a silver-haired king in a tailored suit, his view stretching across the Puget Sound. At 62, he ruled the airline like a dictator, his sharp blue eyes scanning a tablet as Lena's locked video flickered on the screen, followed by the bot swarm he'd unleashed. He'd built Horizon from a regional carrier to a billion-dollar giant, and no pregnant nobody from Dallas was going to tarnish it. "She's a pest," he muttered, his voice a low growl, to his assistant, a wiry man named Paul hovering by the desk. 10,000 views? That's nothing. We've got the narrative now." Paul nodded, tapping notes into his phone. "Statements out, bots are live. She'll fade by morning." Victor smirked, leaning back in his leather chair, the city lights glinting off his cufflinks. "Good. But she's stubborn. Watched her video. She's got fire. We don't stop at fading her. We crush her." He swiped to a photo of Lena from the airport, her soaked figure dwarfed by security, and his lip curled. "Think she can take us down with a phone? She's got no idea what's coming." Paul hesitated, then ventured, "What if she fights back? That hashtag's still growing." Victor's smirk vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. "Then we hit harder. Lawsuits, leaks, whatever it takes. She's a blip, Paul, a loud, annoying blip. By the time I'm done, she'll wish she'd never boarded that plane." He tapped the tablet, pulling up her profile, her life laid bare in pixels. 32, married, pregnant, a freelance graphic designer with a modest following, vulnerable, perfect. "Get me her address," he said, his voice ice. "This ends before it starts." Back in the sedan, Lena's phone buzzed again, another anonymous message slipping through the noise. "They're watching. Don't trust anyone." She showed Jamal, her skin prickling, and he gripped the wheel. Tighter, his knuckles whitening. "Who's they?" he asked. But she didn't answer, her mind spinning. The station, the bots, the statement. It was all too coordinated, too fast. Was this just Horizon, or something bigger? She leaned against the window, the glass hot against her cheek, and watched the desert stretch into the dusk. Her video was gone, her voice muted, but the fight in her roared louder than ever. They'd tried to bury her once. What would they do next? Hey folks, what do you think? Comment number 1 if you're raging at how they twisted Lena's story, or number 2 if you think she should have stayed quiet to avoid this mess. Should Jamal be her rock, or is he in over his head? Hit that like button if you're rooting for her to clap back, and subscribe to catch every twist as this battle heats up. Victor's out for blood now, so tell me, what's his next move gonna be? How far will he go to silence her? The motel room in Phoenix smelled of mildew and burnt coffee, a flickering neon sign outside casting jagged red shadows through the blinds onto the chipped wooden floor. Lena Carter slumped on the sagging bed, her damp clothes swapped for a loose t-shirt and sweatpants, her 7-month pregnant belly a heavy curve under the fabric. The TV blared a local news channel, the volume low but insistent, filling the cramped space with static and chatter. Jamal paced near the window, his boots scuffing the worn carpet, his phone pressed to his ear as he muttered to a friend back in Dallas. Lena's own phone sat on the nightstand, buzzing nonstop with notifications she barely had the energy to check. Her video was gone, her account locked, but dark justice for Lena had clawed its way back, trending nationwide with thousands of posts. A wildfire she hadn't expected to reignite so fast after the bot swarm tried to snuff it out. She scrolled through the hashtag, her thumb trembling over the cracked screen, and a flicker of hope sparked in her chest. Strangers from Seattle to Miami typed furious support. Horizon's a disgrace. I saw the video before they killed it. Keep fighting, sis. A grainy screenshot of her soaked on the plane circled with captions calling Marissa Vaughn a racist bully. Lena's lips twitched into a half smile, the first real one since Dallas. Jamal, look at this, she said, her voice hoarse, but alive. He crossed the room in 2 strides, peering over her shoulder, his dark eyes widening. Damn, baby. They're loud for you. He squeezed her arm, his calloused fingers warm against her skin, and she leaned into him, the weight of the day easing just a fraction. Could this be the turning point? The TV flickered, cutting to a breaking news segment, and her breath caught as the anchor's polished voice filled the room. Horizon Airways faces backlash after a viral incident involving a pregnant passenger. Social media's ablaze with justice for Lena, but the airline stands by its crew. The screen flashed to Marissa, her blonde hair perfect under studio lights, her eyes glistening with rehearsed tears. I was just doing my job, she said, her voice quivering. She got aggressive, threatened safety. I never meant to upset anyone. Lena's stomach twisted, bile rising in her throat. She's lying again, she spat, shoving the phone aside. Jamal grabbed the remote, cranking the volume, his jaw tight. They're spinning it like you're the bad guy. Look, at her playing victim. The anchor cut back in, her tone neutral but damning. Critics call it another race card play, but supporters demand accountability. Stay tuned. Lena stared at the screen, Marissa's crocodile tears burning into her retinas. Another race. Card play. The words echoed Daniel's smirk, the bot's filth, a chorus of dismissal she couldn't unhear. Her phone rang, slicing through the tension, an unknown Dallas number glowing on the screen. She hesitated, then answered, her voice wary. Hello? A woman's voice came through, crisp and confident. Lena Carter? This is Tanya Brooks, civil rights attorney. I saw your story. What Horizon did was illegal, blatant discrimination. I'll sue them for you pro bono. You in? Lena's pulse quickened, her mind racing. A lawyer? For free? You're serious? She asked, and Tanya's laugh was sharp, cutting through the doubt. Dead serious. They messed with the wrong woman. Meet me tomorrow, Dallas Courthouse, 9 sharp. Lena nodded, though Tanya couldn't see it, and hung up, turning to Jamal. We've got a lawyer. She's taking them on. His grin split wide, a rare flash of light in the gloom. That's my girl. We're hitting back. The next morning they drove through Dallas's thick humidity, the air sticky at 85 degrees Fahrenheit even before the sun peaked, and met Tanya in a courthouse lobby buzzing with clerks and coffee cups. She was a wiry black woman in her 40s, her suit sharp as her gaze, her handshake firm. We're filing today, she said, slapping a thick stack of papers onto a table. Discrimination, emotional distress, assault. Horizon's going down. Lena skimmed the documents, her name bold on the plaintiff line, and signed, her pen shaking with adrenaline. Tanya filed the claim by noon, and they left the courthouse feeling invincible, the weight of pride or justice for Lena behind them. Back at the motel, they celebrated with cheap takeout, Jamal raising a soda can. To you, baby. They can't stop us now. Lena clinked her water bottle against it, her smile real this time. Had they finally turned the tide? The news shifted that night, the TV glowing in the dim room as they ate. Horizon Airways responds to a lawsuit from passenger Lena Carter, the anchor said, her voice clipped. The airline denies wrongdoing, calling the claims baseless. Lena's fork froze mid-air. Her eyes locked on the screen as a suited man stepped into frame, his tie pristine, his tone icy. Horizon countersues Ms. Carter for defamation, seeking $2 million in damages. Her actions disrupted operations and smeared our reputation. $2 million. The number slammed into her like a freight train, her breath hitching. Jamal dropped his soda, the can clattering on the floor, brown fizz pooling on the carpet. $2 million? They're insane, he shouted. But Lena couldn't speak, her mind spinning. Defamation? For telling the truth? The anchor continued, oblivious to their shock. Horizon vows to protect its employees and brand. More as this develops. She grabbed her phone, pulling up the lawsuit online, the legal jargon blurring as panic clawed at her throat. Tanya texted seconds later. "They're bluffing, we've got this." But it didn't feel like a bluff. The room closed in, the mildew stench sharper, the neon signs buzz louder. They'd flipped her fight into a weapon against her, a financial noose she couldn't escape. Jamal paced again, his fists balled. "They're trying to scare us. Off. We can't let them." Lena nodded, forcing her voice steady. "We won't." But doubt gnawed at her, the celebration souring into dread. $2 million. Her freelance gigs barely covered rent. How could they fight that? Sleep didn't come easy, the mattress lumpy under her aching back, Jamal's snores a faint rhythm beside her. She stared at the ceiling, replaying Tanya's confidence, the hashtags roar, Marissa's fake tears. Maybe they'd underestimated Horizon. Maybe this was bigger than a flight attendant's grudge. The clock glowed 3:12 when a deafening crash shattered the silence, glass exploding inward as a brick thudded onto the carpet, inches from the bed. Lena jolted upright, her scream caught in her throat, Jamal scrambling awake beside her. "What the hell?" he yelled, lunging for the light switch. The bulb flickered on, revealing the jagged hole in the window, the blinds twisted and dangling, and the brick lying there, a crumpled note taped to its side. Lena's hands shook as she grabbed it, peeling the tape loose, her heart hammering against her ribs. The note was scrawled in black marker, block letters stark against the white paper. "Drop it or lose everything." No signature, no clues, just a threat that sank into her bones like lead. Jamal snatched it from her, his voice a growl. "They're coming for us now, in our room." He stormed to the window, peering into the dark lot, but it was empty, the neon sign blinking like nothing had happened. Lena clutched her belly, her baby kicking faintly, a reminder of what was at stake. "Jamal, this isn't just Horizon," she whispered, her voice cracking. "This is personal." He turned, his eyes blazing, but fear flickered there too. "They don't know who they're messing with," he said, pulling her close, his arms a shield against the chaos. She nodded against his chest, the note crumpled in her fist, but the room felt smaller, the walls pressing in with every buzz. Of that damn sign, the lawsuit, the countersuit, the brick, it was a chain tightening around her, each link heavier than the last. Tanya's words echoed. "We've got this." Did they? The TV droned on, a late-night ad for Horizon flashing across the screen, Victor Grayson's voice purring about safety and trust. Lena's blood ran cold. She didn't know his name yet, but she felt him, a shadow behind the chaos, pulling, strings she couldn't see. They'd tasted victory for a moment, a sweet fleeting high, but now the ground was crumbling beneath them. What had she started? The brick sat there, a silent promise of worse to come, and she knew this fight was about to get uglier than she'd ever imagined. The Dallas courthouse loomed like a concrete fortress, its marble floors slick with humidity that clung to the air at a sticky 87 degrees Fahrenheit, the July heat seeping through every crack despite the rattling air conditioners. Lena. Carter stood in the crowded lobby, her 7-month pregnant belly straining against a borrowed blouse, her hands sweaty as she clutched a water bottle. Jamal hovered beside her, his mechanic's hands stuffed in his pockets, his eyes darting. Between the buzzing clerks and the suited lawyers weaving through the chaos, Tanya Brooks strode ahead, her heels clicking with purpose, leading them to a wood-paneled courtroom where ceiling fans spun lazily overhead, doing little to cut the muggy tension. Lena's heart thudded, a mix of hope and dread churning in her gut. The brick from last night still haunted her, its note tucked in her backpack like a ticking bomb. But justice for Lena roared online, and Tanya swore they had a shot. Could this be where Horizon finally paid? They settled into the plaintiff's table, the room filling with spectators, their whispers a low hum against the creak of benches. Tanya leaned close, her voice a fierce whisper. "We've got witnesses. From the flight, solid testimony. They saw Marissa dump that water, heard her words were golden." Lena nodded, her fingers tracing the table's edge, her eyes scanning the defense side where Horizon's legal team sat, a trio of gray suits with smirks sharp as razors. The judge entered, a grizzled man named Hargrove, his face weathered like an old cop's, his robe hanging loose over broad shoulders. He banged the gavel, silencing the room, and the trial kicked off. Lena's claim against Horizon for discrimination and assault laid bare in Tanya's crisp opening. "This isn't just about a spilled cup," Tanya said, her voice ringing. "It's about a system that targets people like Lena Carter for daring to exist." The first witness took the stand, a nervous college kid in a wrinkled polo, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "I was 2 rows back," he said, his voice shaky but clear. The flight attendant, Marissa, she dumped water on her, said, "Leg rooms. Not for you people. No provocation, nothing." Lena's chest swelled, a flicker of triumph warming her as murmurs rippled through the crowd. Another passenger, a middle-aged woman with a tight bun, testified next. Lena asked for an apology. Marissa got nasty, acted like she owned the plane. Tanya grinned, squeezing Lena's hand under the table. "See? We've got this," she whispered. Jamal shifted beside her, his tension easing, a rare smile tugging at his lips. Was this justice finally breaking through? Horizon's lead attorney, a slick man named Carver with a voice like oil, stood for the defense, his tie glinting under the lights. "Your Honor, this is a fabrication, a desperate grab for attention. Ms. Carter disrupted a flight, endangered passengers, and now seeks to profit." He clicked a remote, and a screen flickered to life, projecting grainy footage from the plane. Lena's breath caught as she saw herself, soaked and standing, her voice loud but distorted, yelling, "You can't do this to me," over and over. The audio was clipped, spliced, nothing like what she'd said. But the room gasped, heads turning toward her. She gripped Jamal's arm, her nails digging in. "That's not me! They faked it!" she hissed, but Tanya's face paled, her confidence cracking. Carver smirked, pacing before the judge. "This is the real Ms. Carter, aggressive, unhinged. Our crew acted to protect everyone." Lena's mind reeled, the doctored clip replaying in her head. She'd said, "Say you're sorry," not that rant. How had they twisted it so fast? Tanya shot up, objecting. "This is manipulated evidence, Your Honor. We demand a forensic review." Hargrove waved her off, his voice gruff. "Sit down, counsel. I'll decide what's admissible." He leaned forward, peering at Lena over his glasses, his gaze heavy, with doubt. "I've seen a lot of cases, Ms. Brooks. Credibility matters. Your client's got a story, but this footage tells another." Lena's stomach sank, the room tilting as whispers grew louder, accusing eyes boring into her. Hargroves, past as an ex-cop, flashed in her mind, his bias seeping through every word. Did he already see her as a liar because of her skin? In the back row, Victor Grayson sat silently, his silver hair catching the light, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the courtroom's faded wood. He watched with a predator's calm, his sharp blue eyes tracking every move, a faint smile playing on his lips as Carver dismantled Lena's case. He'd ordered the footage doctored himself, a late-night call to a tech team in Seattle, and it was worth every penny. This wasn't just about winning, it was about breaking her, grinding her defiance into dust. He leaned toward Paul, his assistant perched beside him, and murmured, "She's done. Make sure it sticks." Paul nodded, scribbling on a notepad, his loyalty to Victor absolute. The trial dragged on, Tanya fighting to salvage their case, calling more witnesses who stuck to the truth, but the footage loomed like a guillotine, its lie louder than their words. Lena testified last, her voice steady despite the tremble in her legs, recounting Marissa's sneer, the water, the guards. "I didn't yell like that. They changed it," she said, locking eyes with Hargrove, willing him to believe her. He didn't flinch, his pen scratching notes, his face unreadable. Carver cross-examined, his questions dripping with scorn. "So you expect us to believe a major airline fabricated evidence just to spite you, Ms. Carter? Sounds convenient," she fired back. "I expect you to believe the truth." But the crowd's murmurs turned sour, doubt spreading like a virus. Hargrove called a recess, then returned with his ruling, his gavel poised like a hammer. "I've heard enough," he said, his voice a gravelly drawl. "The plaintiff's claims lack substantiation. This footage shows a disruption, and I'm not convinced by the testimony over it. Case dismissed." A gasp rippled through the room, but he wasn't done. Horizon's countersuit stands. Defamation proven. "Ms. Carter, you're fined $50,000 for frivolous litigation." The gavel slammed, a thunderclap that echoed in Lena's skull, and the room erupted. Reporters scribbling, spectators whispering, $50,000. She had maybe 200 in savings. Jamal gripped her shoulder, his voice a low growl. "This ain't right." Tanya slammed her briefcase shut, her face tight. "We'll appeal. This is bullshit." Lena stumbled, out, the humidity hitting her like a wall, her legs shaky as Jamal guided her to the car. The fine was a chokehold, but the loss stung deeper, Hargrove's words branding her a fraud. They drove in silence, the sedan's engine rumbling through Dallas's clogged streets until Jamal's phone rang, his boss's name flashing on the screen. He answered, his voice curt. "Yeah, Mike, what's up?" A pause, then his face hardened, his free hand slamming the wheel. "Fired? For what?" Another pause, then he hung up, staring ahead, his knuckles white. "They let me go. Said they can't have drama." Someone called them, leaned hard. Lena's blood ran cold, her mind snapping to Victor's smirk in the courtroom. "Horizon," she whispered, and Jamal nodded, his silence louder than any curse. They pulled into the motel lot, the neon sign buzzing like a taunt, and Lena sank into the passenger seat, her hands cradling her belly. The baby kicked, a faint pulse against the chaos, but the world outside was closing in. $50,000. No job for Jamal. The brick's threat loomed larger now, a promise Horizon was keeping step by vicious step. She'd thought the courthouse was her battlefield, a place to win, but it was a trap, and they'd sprung it with precision. Victor's shadow stretched longer than she'd imagined, his influence snaking into their lives, cutting deeper with every blow. The trial was over, her hope shattered, but the fight wasn't. She looked at Jamal, his jaw set, and found her voice. "They think we're broken. They're wrong." He met her eyes, nodding, but the air between them crackled with fear. What came next would be worse, and they both knew it. Rain hammered the roof of a dimly lit Dallas diner, a greasy spoon tucked off a highway where the air smelled of fried onions and desperation, the July storm turning the night into a soggy blur. Lena Carter sat in a corner booth, her 8-month, pregnant belly pressing against the chipped Formica table, her damp t-shirt clinging to her skin after a sprint from the motel. Jamal hovered beside her, his eyes scanning the near-empty room, a single trucker nursing coffee at the counter, and a waitress wiping down sticky menus. The courthouse loss still burned, $50,000 hanging over them like a guillotine, and Jamal's firing had slashed their lifeline, leaving them broke and raw. Lena's phone buzzed faintly in her backpack, its battery low after dodging calls from Tanya, who swore they'd appeal. But tonight wasn't about lawyers. It was about a lifeline, a whisper of hope from a stranger named Kyle. He'd messaged her that morning. A cryptic note slipped through her flooded inbox. "Flight attendant X Horizon. I've got proof they're dirty. Meet me, 8 p.m., Rusty's Diner." Lena had stared at it for hours, weighing the risk, the bricks. Threat still etched in her mind, but desperation won. Could this be the break they needed? She sipped lukewarm water, her hands trembling when the door jingled, and a wiry man in a faded hoodie slipped in, his ball cap pulled low over pale, nervous eyes. "Lena," he muttered, sliding into the booth, his voice barely above the reins. "Drone." She nodded, her pulse quickening. "Kyle?" He glanced at Jamal, then back to her, leaning in close. "Yeah." Worked for Horizon 5 years. Quit when I saw too much. They've got a playbook, Lena. Racism's baked in, top to bottom. I've got docs, emails, proof Marissa wasn't rogue. She was ordered. Lena's breath hitched, her fingers tightening around the glass. Ordered? By who? Show me, she said, her voice low but fierce. Kyle hesitated, then pulled a crumpled envelope from his jacket, sliding it across the table. Internal memos, training logs. They target, problem, passengers, code for anyone not white, not quiet. Marissa's water stunt? That's their game. Jamal snatched the envelope, peeling it open, his eyes scanning pages stamped with Horizon's logo. This is real? He asked, and Kyle nodded, his leg bouncing under the table. Real as it gets. Victor Grayson, CEO, he's the puppet master, hates losing control, you've got him spooked. Lena's mind raced, Victor's name a shadow she'd felt but never seen. Could this topple him? She flipped through the docs, her heart pounding as words leaped out. Neutralize disruptions, profile risks, protect image. 1. Email dated the day of her flight chilled her blood. Handle her, Marissa. Make it clear who's in charge. Signed VG. She looked up, her voice a whisper. This is it, Jamal. We've got them. Kyle shifted, his eyes darting to the A window. Take it and run. I'm out after this. They'll come for me if they know. Lena nodded, tucking the envelope into her backpack, hope surging like a lifeline in the storm. Thank you, she said, and Kyle stood, vanishing into the rain without a backward glance, his hoodie swallowed by the night. Jamal grinned, rare and bright. We're back in this, baby. She smiled, the weight lifting for a fleeting second. Had they finally caught Horizon off guard? The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed as they paid and left, the rain soaking them anew as they dashed to the sedan, Lena clutching the backpack like gold. Back at the motel, she plugged in her phone, the screen flickering to life, and texted Tanya a photo of the docks. Check this. We've got proof. The reply pinged fast. Holy shit, Lena. This changes everything. Filing tomorrow. She leaned against Jamal, the mattress creaking, and dared to dream of victory. But as she scrolled her messages, her phone glitched, apps flashing, then froze. What the hell? She muttered, tapping the screen. But it went black, then lit up again. Her texts spilling open. Private words she'd sent Jamal weeks ago. Victor's a bigot. This whole airline's rotten. Her stomach dropped, dread clawing up her spine. Jamal, someone's in my phone. He grabbed it, his fingers fumbling, but the damage was done. The screen refreshed, and a news alert popped up, a headline that turned her blood to ice. Lena Carter's leaked texts slam Horizon CEO. She clicked, her heart hammering, and there they were. Her words splashed across a national broadcast, Victor Grayson's stern face beside them. The anchor's voice droned through the motel's cheap TV, flipped on in panic. Horizon CEO Victor Grayson responds to shocking leaks from plaintiff Lena Carter, calling him a bigot. He says this proves she's a race-baiting fraud, out to smear an honest company. Victor stepped into frame, his silver hair gleaming, his voice a velvet blade. These texts show her true colors. She's no victim, she's a liar, and we'll prove it. Lena's hands shook, the phone slipping to the bed, her mind spinning. Hacked. Kyle hadn't just given her proof, he'd set her up. A plant by Victor to gut her from the inside. He played us, she whispered, and Jamal's face darkened, his fist slamming the nightstand. That bastard, we trusted him. The TV blared on, pundits piling in. She's unhinged. Typical scam artist. Horizon's the real victim here. Her hope crumbled. The doc's now a tainted weapon. Her credibility torched in a single broadcast. Victor's smirk filled the screen. A king reclaiming his throne, and she knew he'd orchestrated it all, turning her spark of triumph into ash. The next morning, her phone rang. A local number she didn't recognize. She answered. Her voice, hello? Yes? A clipped voice came through, her OBGYN's receptionist. Ms. Carter, we're dropping you as a patient. Public pressure's too much. Sorry. The line went dead, and Lena stared at the wall, the rain's echo fading into a dull roar in her ears. "They got my doctor," she said, her voice breaking, and Jamal pulled her close, his arms tight but trembling. "We'll find another," he said, but the words felt empty. 8 months pregnant, no job, no money, and now no prenatal care. All because she dared to fight. Victor's reach was a noose, tightening with every move she made. She sank onto the bed, the envelope beside her, its promise souring into a trap. The hacked texts replayed in her mind, her own words twisted to bury her, and the OB/GYN's rejection was a knife in her gut. How far would Victor go? She rubbed her belly, the baby's faint kicks a lifeline in the chaos, but fear gnawed at her, sharper than ever. Kyle's betrayal wasn't just a setback, it was a declaration. Horizon would destroy her life, piece by piece, until she broke. Jamal sat beside her, his silence heavy, and she found her voice, a low growl. "They think I'm done. They're wrong." But the room felt smaller, the walls closing in, and she knew the next blow would be worse. "Hey folks, what's your take? Comment number 1 if you're furious at Kyle's double cross, or number 2 if you think Lena should have seen it coming. Was Jamal right to trust him, or is he too naive for this fight? Smash that like button if you're rooting for Lena to turn this around, and subscribe to catch every brutal twist as Victor tightens the screws. She's down, but not out. So tell me, what's Horizon's next play to crush her spirit? The Dallas apartment was a crumbling shell, its thin walls stained with years of neglect, the July heat seeping through cracked windows to bake the air at a stifling 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Lena Carter sat on a threadbare couch, her 8-month, pregnant belly a heavy anchor under a stretched tank top, her skin slick with sweat despite the rattling box fan in the corner. The motel was behind them, traded for this cheap rental after Jamal's firing, and the $50,000 fine drained their last dime, but the space felt more like a cage than a home. Her phone lay silent on the coffee table, its screen dark. Since the hack that leaked her texts, Victor Grayson's smug face still haunting her from last night's broadcast. She rubbed her temples, the weight of no OB/GYN, no money, and Kyle's betrayal pressing down like a vice, her breath shallow and uneven. Jamal shuffled in from the kitchen, a glass of tap water in hand, his mechanic's jacket swapped for a faded t-shirt, his eyes hollow from sleepless nights. "You okay, baby?" he asked, setting the glass beside her, but she didn't answer, her gaze fixed on the wall where a water stain spread like a bruise. The world outside buzzed faintly. Justice for Lena still alive online, a lifeline of strangers, who'd raised a few $100 through a crowdfunding page before the IRS swooped in, freezing it with a tax fraud notice. Victor's fingerprints were all over that, another gut punch in his relentless war. She'd seen the email that morning, her hands shaking as she read it, and now her head throbbed, a dull ache blooming into something sharper. Was this what breaking felt like? She stood, needing air, but her legs wobbled, the room tilting as black spots danced in her vision. "Jamal," she gasped, clutching her belly, and then she was falling, the floor rushing up to meet her. Jamal lunged, catching her just before she hit, his voice a frantic shout. "Lena, stay with me!" Her eyes fluttered, pain spiking through her abdomen, and she gripped his arm, panic clawing at her throat. "The baby," she rasped, and he scooped her up, her weight nothing against his terror, bolting for the sedan parked in the crumbling lot. The engine roared to life, tires squealing as he tore through Dallas's clogged streets, the hospital a blurry beacon in the dusk, her shallow breaths fogging the window beside her. The ER at Mercy General was a chaos of beeping machines and harried voices, fluorescent lights glaring off scuffed linoleum as Jamal burst through the doors, Lena limp in his arms. "Help her! She's pregnant! She collapsed!" he yelled, and a nurse in faded scrubs rushed over, her face tight as she waved for a gurney. They wheeled Lena into a curtained bay, her body sinking into the thin mattress, her hands cradling her belly as pain pulsed in waves. A doctor strode in, a wiry man with graying hair and a clipboard, his eyes flicking over her chart before settling on her with a frown. 8 months along, no prenatal care listed, he said, his tone clipped, and Jamal bristled beside her. Her doctor dropped her yesterday. She's been under stress, just help her. The doctor's gaze lingered on Lena, his lips pursing as he scribbled notes, and she caught the mutter under his breath. Charity cases always wait till the last minute. Her blood boiled, the casual scorn slicing through her haze, but another contraction hit, stealing her breath, and she gripped the rails, her knuckles whitening. "Do your job," she hissed, and he flinched, adjusting his stethoscope with a grunt. He checked her vitals, his hands brisk and cold, but hesitated, flipping through her chart again, his delay stretching seconds into an eternity. "We'll run tests," he said finally, stepping back, and Jamal snapped, "Run them now. She's in pain." The doctor shrugged, disappearing behind the curtain, leaving them in a limbo of beeps and distant moans. Hours crawled by, the pain ebbing and flowing, Lena's body a battlefield as nurses shuffled in and out, their faces a blur. Jamal held her hand, his grip fierce, whispering, "You're strong, baby. You've got this." But fear trembled in his voice. The doctor returned at last, his expression grudgingly softer. "False labor, stress-induced. Baby's fine, heartbeat steady. You're lucky." Lena exhaled, relief flooding her, but exhaustion dragged her under, her eyes closing as the gurney's wheels squeaked against the floor. She woke later in a dim room, an IV dripping into her arm. Jamal slumped in a plastic chair beside her, his snores a faint comfort. The clock read 2 a.m., the hospital quiet save for a distant hum, and she shifted, wincing as her back ached, grateful to be alive, her baby safe. But the peace shattered when the curtain parted, and 2 women in stiff blazers stepped in, their badges glinting under the lights. Child Protective Services. Lena's heart stuttered, her hand flying to her belly as Jamal jolted awake, his chair scraping the floor. "Lena Carter?" the taller one asked, her voice flat, her clipboard thick with papers. "We're here to assess your fitness as a mother. Got reports of instability, neglect." Lena's mouth went dry, her mind scrambling. "Neglect? I just collapsed. I'm here for my baby." The shorter woman, her hair pulled tight, flipped a page, her eyes cold. "Unstable housing, legal troubles, no prenatal care. We're concerned." Jamal stood, towering over them, his voice a growl. "Concerned? She's fighting a damn airline that's trying to ruin us. This is harassment." The taller agent didn't flinch, her pen scratching notes. "We'll decide what's harassment. Your situation raises red flags. We'll be in touch." They turned to leave, but Lena's voice stopped them, raw and fierce. "You're not taking my kid. I'm a good mother." They didn't respond, their footsteps fading into the hall, leaving a silence that crushed her chest. Jamal sank back into the chair, his head in his hands. "Victor," he muttered, and Lena nodded, the name a poison on her tongue. This wasn't random. Horizon's CEO had sunk his claws into CPS, twisting her collapse into a weapon, painting her as unfit before her baby even arrived. Her phone, plugged in beside her, buzzed with a news alert, and she grabbed it, her hands trembling as she opened the link. Lena Carter's CPS probe. Pregnant plaintiff faces neglect claims. The headline screamed. A blurry photo of her on the gurney splashed across the screen. The story spun lies. Sources say Carter's erratic behavior and financial ruin threaten her unborn child. Victor's voice followed, a clip from an interview smooth as silk. "It's tragic, really. She's brought this on herself, dragging her family into chaos." Chaos he'd orchestrated, from the fine to the hack to this. She dropped the phone, tears burning her eyes, and Jamal pulled her close, his arms a shaky shield. "They're lying," he said. But the damage was done, her community turning against her, neighbors texting Jamal with, "What's she done now?" The hospital room felt like a trap, the IV line a tether to a world collapsing around her. 8 months pregnant? No doctor, no money, and now CPS breathing down her neck, all because she dared to stand up. Victor's game was relentless, each move stripping another piece of her life, and this was the cruelest yet, threatening her baby before it drew breath. She wiped her face, her voice a ragged whisper. "They want me to break, Jamal. I won't." He nodded, his jaw set, but fear flickered in his eyes, mirroring her own. The fan hummed, the walls loomed, and she knew the next fight would be for everything she had left. How much more could they take before she had nothing? The Dallas afternoon simmered at 92 degrees Fahrenheit, the sun a brutal hammer over Horizon Airways regional headquarters, a sleek glass tower casting long shadows across the cracked pavement where hundreds gathered. Lena Carter stood, at the edge of the protest, her 8-month pregnant belly straining against a loose sundress, her sneakers scuffed from the hospital discharge that morning. Jamal flanked her, his arm a steady brace, his eyes scanning the crowd chanting her name. Justice for Lena. Justice for Lena. Banners waved high, homemade signs scrawled with Horizon lies, and stand with her, the air thick with sweat and defiance. She'd barely slept, the CPS threat and Victor's fake neglect report gnawing at her. But the online roar of Justice for Lena had pulled her here, a spark of fight rekindled in her chest. Could this crowd turn the tide? The protest swelled, voices rising over the hum of traffic, a megaphone crackling as a young woman with braids rallied the group. They can't silence her. Horizon's scared of the truth. Lena's phone buzzed in her pocket, Tanya's text glowing. You're trending again. Stay safe. She gripped Jamal's hand, her pulse racing as she stepped forward, the crowd parting like a sea, their cheers a lifeline after weeks of suffocation. A makeshift podium stood ahead, a rickety table with a microphone, and she climbed onto it, her legs shaky, but her voice iron as she took the mic. I'm Lena Carter, she said, the words booming over the chants. Horizon tried to break me, poured water on me, sued me, took my husband's job, my doctor, my peace, but I'm still here, and I'm not alone. You're my voice now. Let's make them hear us, the crowd erupted, fists pumping, phones flashing as they recorded her, her silhouette against the tower's gleaming facade, a symbol of raw defiance. She spoke of Marissa's sneer, the hacked texts, the CPS lies, her voice cracking with fury and hope, each word a brick in a wall against Victor's machine. Jamal stood below, his grin fierce, whispering, You're killing it, baby. For a moment she felt invincible, the weight of $50,000, the brick, the ER fading under the roar of support. Had she finally reclaimed her story? But the air shifted, a low rumble growing at the edges, and her eyes caught movement, dark figures in riot gear spilling from vans parked a block away. Riot police surged into the crowd, batons gleaming, shields up, their boots pounding the pavement. Like thunder. The chants faltered, replaced by screams as protesters scattered, but the cops zeroed in on Lena, their visors glinting under the sun, their intent clear. Disperse now, a megaphone blared, but she froze, her hand on her belly, fear spiking through her triumph. Jamal yanked her down, his voice urgent. We've gotta move. Tear gas canisters hissed, gray clouds billowing as the crowd choked, and a cop lunged, his baton swinging toward Lena's shoulder. Jamal shoved her behind him, taking the blow, his grunt sharp as he stumbled, blood trickling from his arm. Run, he yelled, and she bolted, her sneakers slipping on the asphalt, the gas burning her throat. She dodged through the chaos, her lungs screaming, her baby kicking against the panic, protesters falling around her as cops swung wild. A young man with a phone thrust it toward her, recording, shouting, They're targeting you! She coughed, nodding, and kept moving, Jamal's hand finding hers as they broke free, ducking into an alley where the gas thinned, the tower's shadow looming behind them. Her chest heaved, tears streaming from the sting, but she was alive, her defiance intact. You okay? Jamal rasped, his arm dripping red, and she nodded, clutching him, the crowd's roar fading into sirens. They'd escaped, her speech a jagged victory snatched from the jaws of violence. Back at the apartment, the TV flickered on, local news replaying the protest, choppy footage of her on the podium cutting to the gas and batons. Demonstrators clashed with police outside Horizon Airways today, the anchor said, her tone clipped. Officials call it a violent outbreak, sparked by Lena Carter's inflammatory words. Lena's stomach twisted, the lie a fresh wound, but her phone buzzed with a new video, uploaded by that kid in the crowd. It showed her speaking. Then the cops charging, zeroing in on her, the gas exploding around her pregnant frame. She hit play, her breath catching as the views climbed. 10,000, 20, 50 in minutes. Comments raging. This is sick. They attacked her. Jamal grinned, wiping blood from his arm. They messed up, baby. This is gold. The video spread, a wildfire of outrage. Justice for Lena surging past the bots. Her resilience a beacon against the police's brutality. She leaned against the couch, the fans hum a faint comfort, hope flickering anew. Maybe this was the push they needed, the world finally seeing Horizon's true face. But the TV cut to a press conference, Horizon's logo stark behind a suited man, his voice smooth as glass. We're suing the city for damages, he said. Ms. Carter incited a riot, disrupted our operations. We demand her arrest for public safety. Arrest. The word slammed into her, the room spinning as Jamal cursed, kicking the coffee table, its legs wobbling under the blow. They're pinning this on you? After that? She stood, pacing the tiny space, her belly aching from the run, her mind racing. Horizon wasn't just fighting back. They were rewriting the narrative, turning her defiance into a crime. The video was her shield, but their lawsuit was a sword, Victor's hand guiding every thrust. She grabbed her phone, refreshing the news, and froze as a breaking alert flashed. Police seek Lena Carter for questioning in Horizon riot. Her breath stopped, the walls closing in. The fans buzz a taunt against her pounding heart. They'd escaped the gas, but the noose was tightening. Victor's power flexing beyond the courtroom, into the streets, into her life. The night deepened, rain tapping the windows again, a soft echo of the diner's storm, and Lena sat on the couch, her hands cradling her belly, Jamal cleaning his arm with a rag. The video played on loop in her mind, her voice, the gas, the escape, a victory snatched from chaos. But the lawsuit loomed, the arrest threat a shadow over their fragile hope. She was about to speak when a deafening boom shook the apartment, the floor trembling as orange light flared outside. Jamal bolted to the window, yanking the blinds, and swore, his voice raw. "The car!" Lena stumbled after him, peering into the lot where their sedan sat, flames licking its hood, black smoke curling into the sky. Glass littered the pavement, the explosion's echo fading into the rain, and Lena's knees buckled, Jamal catching her as she sank. "Victor," she whispered, the name a curse, and he nodded, his face a mask of fury and fear. The car was their last lifeline, their way out, now a charred husk sending a message louder than any brick. Stop or burn. Neighbors peeked from windows, sirens wailing in the distance, but no one came to help, their isolation a physical weight. She clutched her belly, the baby's kicks faint against the terror, and looked at Jamal, her voice a ragged vow. "They want us scared. They're getting a fight." He squeezed her hand, nodding, but the flames danced in her eyes, a warning of the hell still to come. The Dallas night hung heavy at 88 degrees Fahrenheit, the air thick with rain, and the acrid stench of burnt metal from the sedan's charred remains in the apartment lot. Lena Carter stood by the window, her 9-month pregnant belly, a taut drum under her sundress, her hands trembling as she watched police lights flash red and blue through the haze. Jamal paced behind her, his boots scuffing the worn floor, his voice a low growl as he replayed the explosion. "They blew up our car, Lena. Victor's not playing anymore." Her phone buzzed on the table, a news alert screaming, "Arrest warrant issued for Lena Carter. Riot incitement." The protest video's triumph now a noose tightening around her neck. She'd barely caught her breath from the hospital, CPS's threat still raw, when this hit. Could they sink any lower? A fist pounded the door, splintering the silence, and Jamal froze, his eyes locking with hers. "Police! Open up!" a voice bellowed, and her heart slammed against her ribs, the baby kicking hard as fear spiked through her. Jamal moved first, cracking the door, but it burst wide. 3 cops in tactical gear shoving past, their guns glinting under the dim bulb. "Lena Carter, you're under arrest," the lead officer barked, a stocky man with a buzz cut, his badge reading Torres. She stepped back, hands up, her voice shaking but firm. "For what? Speaking out? You saw the video? They attacked." "Me!" Torres smirked, snapping cuffs on her wrists, the metal biting her skin. Incitement, public endangerment, save it for the judge. Jamal lunged forward, shouting, "She's 9 months pregnant. You can't do this." But a second, cop pinned him to the wall, his arm twisting, his face contorted in pain. They dragged her out, the stairs creaking under their boots. Neighbors peeking through curtains as rain soaked her dress, her belly swaying with every step. The squad car's back seat stank of sweat and vinyl, the cuffs cutting into her swollen wrists as Torres drove, his partner radioing ahead. "Got her. Bringing her in." She stared out the window, Dallas blurring past, her mind racing. Victor had turned her rally into a crime, the car explosion a warning she hadn't heeded, and now this. How deep did his power run? At the station, they shoved her into a holding cell, a concrete box with a single cot, the air stale and heavy. "Lawyer's on her way," Jamal yelled from the hall before they hauled him out, leaving her alone, the door clanging shut like a coffin lid. Tanya arrived an hour later, her suit rumpled, her eyes blazing as she argued through the bars. "This is retaliation, pure and simple. I've got bail papers. We're getting you out." Lena nodded, clutching her belly, but a sharp pain ripped through her, doubling her over with a gasp. "Tanya, it's starting," she rasped, sweat beading on her forehead as contractions hit, fast and fierce. Tanya banged on the bars, shouting, "She's in labor. Get her to a hospital." A guard sauntered over, a lanky man with a sneer peering at her like she was a sideshow. "You people breed trouble, don't you?" he muttered, and Lena's blood boiled. But another contraction stole her breath, her hands gripping the cot's edge. "Move," Tanya snapped, and he shrugged, unlocking the cell. But his pace was glacial, his radio crackling as he stalled. The pain escalated, a relentless tide, and Lena sank to the floor, her cries echoing off the walls as the guard watched, unmoved. "Hurry up," Tanya yelled, but he smirked, muttering, "She'll wait." Minutes stretched into agony, her body shaking until a second guard, younger, rushed in, his face paling. "She's having the baby, you idiot." He grabbed a wheelchair and they wheeled her to a corner. No hospital, no doctor, just the cells, cold concrete. Lena pushed, her screams raw, Tanya gripping her hand, whispering, "You've got this," as the guards hovered, one mocking, "Guess she's delivering here." After an eternity of pain, a cry pierced the air. A tiny girl, slick and perfect, born on a jail cot, her wails a defiant hymn against the chaos. Lena cradled her, tears mixing with sweat, her body spent but her heart soaring as Jamal burst in, freed from booking, his eyes wide with awe. "She's beautiful," he whispered, touching the baby's tiny fist, but the moment shattered as CPS agents stormed through, the same blazers from the hospital, their clipboards gleaming like weapons. "Lena Carter, we're taking custody," the taller one said, her voice ice, reaching for the newborn. Lena pulled back, clutching her daughter, her voice a feral scream. "No, you can't take her!" Jamal stepped between them, his fists balled, but the shorter agent waved a court order, her tone smug. "Unsafe conditions, unfit mother. It's done." They pried the baby from her arms, Lena's sobs tearing through the cell, Jamal's roar drowned by their footsteps as they left, the infant's cries fading down the hall. She collapsed, her hands empty, her body trembling as Tanya knelt beside her, her voice tight. "They rushed this. Victor's behind it. We'll fight it." But Lena barely heard. Her world a void where her daughter had been. The guards, laughter ringing in her ears. Hours later, they rolled her out, Tanya's bail finally processed. But the papers were lost, keeping her locked overnight, her cries unanswered as dawn crept through the bars. She staggered into Jamal's arms outside, her body hollow, his shirt soaked with her tears. "They took her," she choked, and he held her, his silence a shared wound. The TV flickered in Victor's Seattle penthouse, 30 floors above the city, his silver hair catching the glow as he sipped scotch, watching a late-night broadcast. Lena Carter's child removed by CPS after jailhouse birth, the anchor said, cutting to him in a pristine suit, his voice smooth. "It's heartbreaking, but we're overhauling safety protocols to prevent such tragedies. Our thoughts are with her." His grin widened off camera, a predator's glee as Paul handed him a tablet, the protest video's views dwarfed by this new scandal. "She's finished," Victor said, his tone ice. No one rallies for a jailbird mom. He'd pulled every string, from the arrest to CPS, ensuring her baby was the final blow, a public gutting she couldn't survive. Lena sat in the sedan's replacement, a borrowed clunker, her hands gripping the seat as Jamal drove, the city a blur of lights and pain. The arrest, the birth, the theft of her daughter. It was a nightmare scripted by Victor, each move crueler than the last. Her phone buzzed, a news clip of Victor's sympathy, and rage flared through her grief, a vow forming in her gut. "They think I'm broken," she said, her voice a jagged edge. "They're wrong." Jamal nodded, his jaw set. But the road ahead loomed dark. The fight now for her child, against a monster who'd stop at nothing. Hey folks, what's your gut say? Comment number 1 if you're raging at CPS snatching Lena's baby. Or number 2 if you think she pushed too hard and lost it all. Was Jamal powerless here, or should he have fought harder? Hit that like button if you're screaming for her to get her daughter back, and subscribe to catch every heart-wrenching twist as this war explodes. Victor's grinning now, but Lena's not done, so tell me, how's she gonna claw her way out of this hell? The Dallas foster care office was a sterile cube, its walls a dull beige under buzzing fluorescent lights, the air chilled to a crisp 68 degrees Fahrenheit, despite the July heat simmering outside. Lena Carter stood in the waiting area, her postpartum body aching under a loose hoodie, her hands clenched as she stared at the glass door where her newborn daughter waited. Jamal paced beside her, his borrowed t-shirt tight across his shoulders, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights since CPS tore their baby away in that jail cell. Tanya had pulled strings, securing a supervised visit after the arrest, and Lena's heart thudded, a mix of dread and hope churning in her gut. 2 days without her daughter felt like years. Victor Grayson's smug safety overhaul speech, still echoing from the TV, a taunt that fueled her every step. Could she hold her girl again without breaking? A social worker emerged, a stout woman with a clipboard, her voice flat. 10 minutes, supervised. No funny business. Lena nodded, her throat tight, and they followed her into a small room. Its carpet stained, a single chair and table dwarfed by a two-way mirror. There she was, her daughter, swaddled in a crib, her tiny fists curled, her cries soft but piercing. Lena rushed forward, scooping her up, tears spilling as she pressed the baby to her chest, the scent of formula and warmth flooding her senses. "My girl," she whispered, rocking her, the weight of loss lifting for a fleeting moment. Jamal knelt beside them, his fingers brushing the baby's cheek, his voice a rough murmur. "She's perfect, Lena." The worker watched, scribbling notes, but Lena didn't care, her world narrowing to this fragile reunion. The 10 minutes vanished too fast, the worker stepping in with a curt, "Time's up." Lena clung tighter, her sobs rising as they pried. Her daughter away, Jamal's arms wrapping around her as she stumbled back, the crib emptying like a wound reopening. "We'll get her," he vowed. But the door shut, and they staggered out, the clunker idling in the lot under a gray sky. Lena's phone buzzed as they climbed in, a text from an unknown number. "Horizon Insider. Meet me, midnight, old warehouse. Off I-35. Real proof this time." Her pulse spiked, Kyle's betrayal flashing in her mind, but desperation gnawed deeper. "Another trap?" Jamal asked, his voice wary, and she shook her head, resolve hardening. "Maybe. But I'm not losing her over fear." Midnight came fast, the warehouse a crumbling shell on Dallas's outskirts, its rusted walls looming. Under a moonless sky, the air sticky at 85 degrees. Lena and Jamal crept inside, her sneakers silent on broken concrete, his flashlight cutting through the dark. A figure waited near a stack of crates, a woman this time, her hoodie shadowing, her face, her voice a nervous hiss. "I'm Claire, ex-Horizon HR. Victor's email's here." She thrust a USB drive into Lena's hand, its weight a promise and a risk. "He ordered Marissa to target you, prove a point. It's all there." Lena's breath caught, her fingers closing around it. "Why help me?" she asked, and Claire's eyes darted to the door. Because he's a monster. I quit when I saw this. She vanished into the shadows, leaving them alone with the prize. Back at the apartment, Lena plugged the USB into Jamal's old laptop, her hands shaking as files loaded, emails stamped with Victor's initials spilling open. One, dated the flight day, read, "Marissa, handle her, show her place." Another, post-protest, "Crush her, legal or otherwise." Her blood boiled, proof of his venom in black and white, and Jamal grinned, fierce and wild. This ends him. They uploaded it all. A torrent site swallowing the files, links blasting across barred justice for Lena, her voice roaring back into the world. Views soared. 50,000, 100, outrage igniting as headlines screamed. Horizon CEO exposed, ordered assault on pregnant passenger. She sank onto the couch, postpartum exhaustion warring with triumph, her baby's face in her mind. Had she finally struck gold? The victory soured fast, a knock shattering the dawn quiet, a process server at the door with a thick envelope. Lena tore it open, her eyes scanning the restraining order. Victor's lawyers claiming she was unstable, a threat to her own child, banning her from contact. Her knees buckled, Jamal catching her as she choked. They're taking her again. The judge's signature glared up, a name she recognized from courthouse whispers. Hargrove's golf buddy, a crony in Victor's pocket. No hearing, no evidence, just a rubber stamp stripping her rights. She clutched the paper, rage surging through her grief, and Jamal slammed the wall, plaster cracking. He's rigging it all. Tanya's call came seconds later, her voice tight. It's a setup, but those emails are dynamite. We'll fight this. The TV flickered on, news cutting to Victor's penthouse, his silver hair pristine as he faced cameras, his tone grave. These leaks are fabricated, a desperate lie from a troubled woman. We're cooperating with authorities. But the public wasn't buying it, protests flaring nationwide. Justice for Lena drowning his spin. Lena refreshed her phone, the emails reach exploding, 200,000 views, comments raging. Lock him up. Give her baby back. She stood, pacing the tiny room, her body screaming for rest but her mind ablaze. Victor's empire wobbled, but the restraining order was a dagger in her heart, her daughter slipping further away with every viral hit. Night fell. The apartment, a furnace as the clunker's AC sputtered, and Lena planned with Jamal, their voices low over the laptop's hum. "We leak more. Keep pushing," she said. But a crash outside cut her off, boots stomping, flashlights slicing through the blinds. "Police, open up!" a voice bellowed, and the door splintered, SWAT bursting in, rifles raised, their shouts. A chaos of hands up. Lena froze, her hands rising, Jamal beside her as they shoved her against the wall, her postpartum frame trembling. "Warrant for hacking," a captain barked, flashing papers, Victor's name buried in the fine print. "You're under arrest." They cuffed her again, the metal cold, her belly empty but aching, and ransacked the room, seizing the laptop, the USB, everything. Jamal fought, his voice raw. "This is bullshit. Those emails are real." A cop slammed him down, his cheek hitting the floor, blood trickling as they dragged Lena out, the clunker surrounded by squad cars, neighbors gawking in the rain-soaked lot. The station loomed ahead, but this time it was a holding pen, no cell. Just a bench where she sat, cuffs biting, her mind spinning. Victor had flipped her strike into a crime, framing her as the hacker, his retaliation a sledgehammer to her fragile win. Tanya arrived, her face grim. "They're charging you, but the public's losing it. We've got a shot." Lena nodded, her voice a whisper. "Get my baby back." The raid's echo lingered, her apartment trashed, her proof gone, but the emails lived online, a wildfire Victor couldn't douse. She sat in the pen, her body a wreck, her spirit frayed but unbroken. Jamal's bloodied face in her mind, her daughter's cries a ghost in her ears. The restraining order was a wall, the arrest a cage, but the world was watching, and Victor's throne cracked under the weight. She leaned against the bench, her breath ragged, and vowed, "You're not winning this." The fight was her life now, every blow a call to rise, and she'd claw through hell to prove it. The Seattle warehouse crouched on the edge of the city like a forgotten beast, its rusted steel walls glinting under a damp August night. The air cool at 62 degrees Fahrenheit after a long flight from Dallas. Lena Carter crouched behind, a stack of crates, her postpartum body trembling under a borrowed jacket. Her breath shallow as she adjusted the tiny camera pinned to her collar, its red light blinking as it streamed live to a burner phone Jamal held beside her. They'd fled the raid, Tanya's bail barely springing her before cops could lock her down again, and driven north in a rented van, chasing a tip from Claire. Horizon's shredding operation, proof of their sins hidden here. Her daughter's absence was a hole in her chest, the restraining order a chain. But Victor's leaked emails had cracked his armor, and she'd rip it open tonight. Could this end him? Jamal swept his flashlight across the dark, its beam catching rows of industrial shredders, their blades silent but stained with paper dust, a graveyard of secrets. "Over there," he whispered, nodding to a desk piled with files, Horizon's logo faint on scattered sheets. Lena crept forward, her sneakers silent on the concrete, her hands shaking as she rifled through, finding logs of passenger incidents, memos marked confidential, all tying Victor to systemic racism. "This is it," she hissed, holding up a page ordering disruptive profiles targeted, her voice low but fierce on the live feed. "Victor Grayson's empire, built on hate. Look at this." The burner buzzed, views climbing. 10,000, 20. Her truth blasting out as Jamal filmed, his jaw set with grim pride. She stuffed papers into her backpack, her pulse racing, when boots echoed from the shadows, heavy and deliberate, freezing her mid-motion. Jamal killed the light, pulling her down as three figures emerged, hulking men in black gear, guns holstered but hands twitchy, their faces scarred and hard. "Found her," one growled, his voice gravel, his pistol sliding free as he stepped into the dim glow of a hanging bulb. Lena's stomach lurched, her camera catching their sneers, the feed spiking to 50,000 as she stood, hands up, her voice steady despite the terror. "You're on live, assholes, world's watching." The leader, a bald brute with a neck tattoo, laughed, his gun steady. "Don't care, lady. Boss says you're done." Jamal lunged, tackling the thug's legs, the gun clattering as they hit the floor, fists flying in a blur of rage. Lena dodged, grabbing a wrench from a crate, her postpartum frame screaming as she swung at a second man, his arm blocking, his fist slamming her shoulder. Pain flared, but she ducked, rolling behind a shredder, her camera jostling, the feed chaotic but alive. "Victor sent them," she shouted, her words raw for the viewers, now 80,000 strong. The third thug charged, his boot catching Jamal's ribs, a sickening crack echoing as he crumpled, groaning. Lena screamed, hurling the wrench, nailing the man's knee, and he staggered, giving her a split-second edge. She darted to the desk, snatching the burner, and hit a crate ladder, climbing fast, her breath ragged as the bald leader roared below. "Get her!" Bullets pinged off steel, sparks flying as she reached a catwalk, the camera steadying, her face filling the frame. This is what Horizon does. Hires thugs to silence me. The feed hit 100,000, comments flooding. "Holy shit. Save her." Jamal crawled up, blood streaking his shirt, and they bolted down the walk, the shredders a maze. Below. She spotted a fire exit, shoving it open, rain slapping her face as they stumbled onto a roof, the city sprawling under a gray sky, the live stream a lifeline to millions. The thugs burst out, guns raised, but Lena spun, her voice a weapon. "Shoot me, and it's over for Victor. Everyone sees you." The bald one hesitated, his finger twitching, the feed soaring past 200,000, a global roar she couldn't hear but felt. Jamal tackled again, wrestling the gun free, and they ran, leaping to a lower roof, pain searing her legs as she landed, the camera catching every gasp. They hit the ground, sprinting to the van, tires squealing as Jamal floored it, the warehouse shrinking in the rear view, bullets pocking the tailgate but missing flesh. She checked the feed, 300,000 now, her proof live. Victor's empire teetering as protests flared online and off. They hid in a cheap motel, the van stashed, the burner buzzing with notifications as the video crashed servers, millions of views in hours, headlines screaming, Horizon thugs attack pregnant mom on live feed. Lena's shoulder throbbed. Jamal's ribs bruised, but they'd escaped, her voice louder than ever. She leaned against him, the mattress creaking. hope flickering through the exhaustion. "We did it," she whispered, and he nodded, his grin pained but real. They're scared now, but the TV flickered on, Victor's face filling the screen, his silver hair unruffled, his tone ice. "This was a staged stunt by a desperate woman. We're cooperating with the FBI to investigate her crimes." The feed cut, static hissing, views frozen as servers buckled under the weight. A digital blackout. Victor spun into doubt. Lena's stomach sank, the room spinning as Jamal cursed, kicking the bed frame. "He's flipping it again." She refreshed the burner, the video gone, replaced by bot swarms. Fake, liar, arrest her. Victor's counterpunch was swift, the FBI logo flashing on news, a warrant for her cyber-terrorism looming. She stood, pacing the cramped space, her body a wreck but her mind racing. He'd lost the public, but not the power, his claws still deep in the system. The door creaked, a TV crew outside cutting to Marissa Vaughn, her blonde hair perfect, her voice trembling on live air. "I was wrong. Victor told me to target Lena. It was all him." Lena froze, hope surging, but Marissa's eyes darted, and she backtracked, tears glistening. "No, wait, I mean she provoked me. I'm sorry, I don't know." The motel room went silent, the TV droning as Jamal stared, his voice low. She flipped, then flopped. He paid her off. Lena nodded, her fists clenching. Marissa's half-confession a dagger dulled by cowardice. Victor's money silencing the truth again. The feed was dead, the FBI closing in, but the warehouse proof lived in screenshots, scraps online, a spark she'd lit before the blackout. She sank onto the bed, her shoulder screaming, her daughter's face in her mind, the restraining order a wall she'd climb with bloodied hands. "He's slipping," she said, her voice a ragged vow. "We've got him rattled." Jamal squeezed her hand, nodding, but the sirens wailed in the distance, a hunt she couldn't outrun forever. Victor watched from his penthouse 30 floors above Seattle, his scotch glass sweating as he scrolled a tablet, Marissa's botched confession looping on mute. Paul hovered, his voice tight. "She's got millions behind her, sir. The FBI's on it, but the optics are bad." Victor's lip curled, his blue eyes ice. "She's a parasite, bleeding me dry. Marissa's useless, should have stayed quiet." He slammed the glass down, amber liquid sloshing, and stood, pacing the plush carpet. "The FBI will bury her, but I want her gone. No more games." Paul nodded, typing fast, and Victor glared out at the city, his empire fraying. Lena's defiance a thorn he'd crush with his last breath. Lena leaned against the motel wall, the rain a faint patter outside, her body broken but her spirit aflame Victor couldn't douse. The warehouse was a win, the world had seen, but his counter was a beast. Marissa's flip a fleeting crack he'd sealed with cash. She looked at Jamal, his ribs taped, his eyes fierce, and found her voice. "We're not done. He's bleeding too." The fight was a war now. Every blow a step closer to her daughter, and she'd tear through hell to win. The Seattle courthouse buzzed like a hive, its marble halls packed with reporters and protesters under a gray August sky. The air cool at 65 degrees Fahrenheit but thick with tension inside. Lena Carter sat at the defendant's table, her postpartum body slumped in a borrowed blazer, her wrists free of cuffs but her spirit shackled by exhaustion after weeks on the run. Jamal flanked her, his ribs taped under a wrinkled shirt, his eyes darting to the mob beyond the windows, chanting justice for Lena. Tanya Brooks stood beside them, her suit crisp, her voice low as she shuffled papers from the warehouse raid, the leaked emails and screenshots salvaged from the crashed live feed. The FBI had hauled Lena in for cyber-terrorism. Victor, Grayson's frame-up, but the world watched, millions behind her. Could this trial break his empire? The courtroom filled, benches creaking under spectators, cameras banned but phones smuggled, their lenses glinting as the judge entered. A stern woman named Ellis, her black robe a stark contrast to her silver hair. She banged the gavel, silencing the hum, and the prosecutor rose, a lean man named Kessler with a voice like a blade. Lena Carter staged a violent stunt, hacked Horizon Airways, endangered lives. She's a threat to order, Your Honor. He waved at a screen, replaying the warehouse chaos, edited to show her swinging the wrench. Jamal tackled, the feed cut, before the thug's guns, painting her as the aggressor. Lena's stomach twisted, her hands clenching under the table as Tanya shot up, her objection sharp. "This is doctored. We have witnesses, proof of Horizon's attack." Ellis nodded, but her eyes flicked to Kessler, a flicker of something Lena couldn't read. Tanya built their case brick by brick, calling Claire the ex-HR insider who testified in a trembling voice. "Victor ordered Lena targeted. It's in the emails. I saw it." The jury, 12 blank faces, scribbled notes, but their eyes stayed, cold, unmoved. Jamal took the stand, his voice raw. "They shot at us, beat me, all on live feed. She's no terrorist." Lena followed, her legs shaky as she faced the room, recounting the water, the arrest, the baby stolen, her words steady despite the ache in her chest. "Victor's the criminal, not me. He's burying the truth." The crowd murmured, phones flashing, but the jurors shifted, their gazes hard, and dread crept up her spine. Were they already bought? Kessler cross-examined, his questions venomous. "You broke into a warehouse, assaulted men, spread lies online. You expect us to believe this conspiracy over facts?" Lena fired back, her voice rising. "Facts? Your facts are Victor's edits. I've got millions who saw it live." He smirked, pacing, and dropped a bomb. "Marissa Vaughn recanted her confession, says you coerced her." The room gasped, Lena's breath catching as Kessler played. A clip, Marissa's teary retraction from the motel TV, her voice shaky. "Lena pushed me to lie. Lies on lies. Victor's cash silencing her again," and Lena gripped the stand, her postpartum frame trembling but her eyes blazing. "She's scared of him, not me." The trial stretched days, evidence piling up, Tanya's witnesses clashing, with Kessler's parade of Horizon stooges claiming Lena's violence disrupted order. The jury deliberated, hours ticking by, and Lena sat with Jamal, her hand in his, the mob's chants a faint roar outside. Tanya paced, muttering, "We've got enough. They can't ignore it." But doubt gnawed at Lena. The jurors blank, stares a wall she couldn't breach. Victor's shadow loomed, his penthouse grin from news clips a taunt she felt in her bones. The gavel banged, Ellis summoning them back, and the foreman stood, a paunchy man with a monotone voice. "Guilty, on all counts." The room erupted, shouts drowning the clang as Lena's knees buckled, Jamal catching her, his voice a choked roar. "No, this ain't right." Tanya slammed her fist on the table, yelling, "This is a travesty." Ellis pounded for order, her face unreadable as she listed charges. Cyber-terrorism, assault, incitement, a litany Victor had scripted. Lena stared at the jury, their eyes avoiding hers, and rage surged through her shock. "You're lying," she shouted, lunging forward, Jamal pulling her back as guards closed in. "You know the truth. Say it." The foreman flinched, a crack in his mask, and she seized it, her voice a thunderclap over the chaos. "Look at me," she bellowed, the room hushing, phones flashing. "I'm a mother fighting for my kid, my life, against a man who'd rather see me dead than free. You've got his money, not your souls. Tell me I'm wrong." The jurors froze, the foreman's hands trembling, and a woman in the back, gray-haired and wide-eyed, shifted, her lips parting. Tanya pounced, her voice cutting through. "Your Honor, I've got evidence of jury tampering." She waved a folder, snatched from a tipster mid-trial, receipts of cash drops, texts linking Victor to the foreman. Ellis's gavel hovered, her eyes narrowing as Kessler objected, his face paling. "This is baseless," the crowd roared. "Mistrial! Mistrial!" And Ellis banged again, her voice strained. "Recess. We'll review." Hours later, she returned, her ruling clipped. Tampering confirmed, mistrial declared. Relief crashed over Lena, Jamal's arms tight around her, Tanya's grin fierce as Victor stormed out, his silver hair aflash in the mob, his glare promising blood. "We've got him," Tanya whispered. But Lena's victory soured fast. Her daughter still gone, the restraining order a wall unbreached. She stepped outside, the chance a balm, her body free but her heart caged. Back at the motel, the clunker idling, Tanya's phone rang. A CPS contact with a miracle. Visit approved. Temporary return pending appeal. Lena's breath caught, and they sped to the foster office, the same sterile cube, her hands shaking. As she signed papers, Jamal beside her, his ribs aching but his grin wide. The worker brought her daughter, swaddled and cooing, and Lena scooped her up, tears spilling as she rocked her, the baby's warmth a lifeline after weeks of loss. "My girl," she sobbed. Jamal's hand on her shoulder, his voice thick. "We're a family again." They drove back, the clunker rattling, her daughter's tiny breaths a rhythm against her chest, hope blooming fragile but real. The night deepened, rain tapping the motel roof, and Lena cradled her baby, Jamal dozing beside her, the TV off for once. She'd won a battle, the mistrial a crack in Victor's armor, the world still raging online with extra justice for Lena. Screenshots of the warehouse proof alive despite the blackout, but headlights sliced through the blinds, tires crunching gravel, and her gut twisted, dread spiking as boots thudded outside. The door crashed open, private guards in black vests bursting in, their faces masked, guns drawn. "Give us the kid," one barked, his voice muffled, and Lena screamed, clutching her daughter as Jamal leapt up, swinging at the nearest thug, his fist connecting with a jaw. They swarmed, pinning Jamal to the floor, blood streaking his face as Lena kicked, her postpartum strength no match for their bulk. "Victor sent you," she shrieked, but they tore the baby from her arms, her wails piercing the night as they bolted, the clunker's engine roaring as they vanished into the rain. Lena collapsed, her sobs raw. Jamal crawling to her, his nose bleeding, his voice a broken vow. "We'll get her back." The room spun, her daughter gone again, Victor's final blow a knife in her gut, his private army a shadow the law couldn't touch. She clutched Jamal, her voice a ragged whisper. "He's not done. Neither am I." The fight was all she had left, a war she'd waged to her last breath. Victor watched from his jet, cruising 30,000 feet above the Pacific, his silver hair catching the cabin's glow, a smirk playing on his lips as Paul confirmed the snatch. "Baby's secure, sir. She's finished now." Victor nodded, sipping champagne. The mistrial a sting, but this a balm. "Good. She'll break, or she'll die trying." The jet hummed, his empire battered but standing. Lena's defiance a thorn he'd pluck with blood if he had to. He leaned back, the city lights fading below, and waited for her next desperate move. Victor Grayson's private jet sliced through the night sky over the Pacific, 30,000 feet above a black ocean, its sleek fuselage humming at a crisp 55 degrees Fahrenheit inside. A stark contrast to the August heat Lena Carter had fled. She crouched in the cargo hold, her postpartum body shivering under a stolen maintenance jumpsuit, her breath fogging as she adjusted the wire taped to her chest, its tiny camera blinking live to a burner phone stashed in her pocket. Jamal had rigged it, his hands steady despite his bruised ribs, after they'd tracked Victor's flight from a tipster in Seattle, sneaking her aboard at a private airstrip while he waited below with Tanya, ready to blast the feed online. Her daughter's cries echoed in her mind, stolen again by Victor's guards, and this was her last stand, a desperate gamble to end him. Could she pull it off? The hold was a steel tomb, crates strapped tight, but a hatch led up, its latch creaking. As she pried it open, her muscles screaming from the motel raid's toll. She climbed into the main cabin, plush leather seats glowing under soft lights. Victor's silver hair catching her eye as he lounged near the cockpit, a champagne flute in hand, Paul typing beside him. Her baby slept in a crib by his side, a sight that ripped her heart open, and she stepped forward, her voice a low growl. "Victor." He turned, his blue eyes widening, then narrowing, a smirk curling his lips as he set the glass down. "Lena Carter, persistent little roach. Aren't you?" She tapped the wire, the camera live, her words sharp for the world. "You're on now, bastard. Everyone sees you." The burner buzzed, view spiking 10,050, as she faced him, her hands trembling but her stance iron. "You took my daughter, ruined my life, all because I wouldn't bow. Say it, Victor. Tell them why." He laughed, a cold, hollow sound, standing to tower over her, his suit pristine. Why? Because you're nothing, Lena. A black woman who thinks she can touch me? You'll never win, not against this. He gestured to the jet, his empire, his voice dripping venom as the feed hit 100,000. Paul scrambling to cut it, his fingers fumbling on a tablet. You're a pest I've squashed, and your brat's just collateral. Her baby stirred, cooing, and Lena's rage flared, her fist clenching as she stepped closer, the camera catching every sneer. You ordered Marissa to target me, sent thugs, stole my kid, she said, her voice rising, steady for the millions now watching, 200,000 and climbing. You're done, Victor. The world knows. He lunged, faster than she'd expected, his hand gripping her throat, the flute shattering on the floor as Paul shouted, "Sir, stop!" The feed jolted, viewers gasping online, 300,000 locked on as Lena clawed at his arm, her postpartum strength waning but her will unbroken. You're finished, she choked, kicking his shin, breaking free, and he stumbled, rage twisting his face into something feral. I'll kill you myself, he snarled, grabbing a jagged shard of glass from the floor. The jet lurched, turbulence, rocking it as Lena dodged, the shard slashing her arm, blood streaking the jumpsuit, the camera blurring but alive. She scooped her daughter from the crib, cradling her, the baby's wails piercing the chaos as Victor charged again, glass gleaming. Jamal's voice crackled through an earpiece Tanya had rigged, faint but urgent. Lena, get out. We've got parachutes below. She bolted for the hatch, Victor's roar behind her, and kicked it open. The hold's cold air rushing up as the feed hit 500,000, a global scream she couldn't hear. Paul lunged, tackling her legs, but she twisted, slamming her, elbow into his nose, blood spurting as he fell back howling. Victor reached her, glass raised, his eyes wild as the jet shuddered again, a warning beep blaring from the cockpit. You're dead, he bellowed, but she ducked, shoving him into a crate, his head cracking against steel, the shard clattering away. She grabbed a parachute from the hold, strapping it on with one hand, her baby tight against her chest, the camera steady as she faced him, her voice a thunderclap for the world. You lose, Victor. It's over. The feed soared past 1 million, protests erupting below, Horizon's stock crashing in real time as she leapt, the hatch sucking her into the night. Wind howling as she plummeted, pulling the cord, the chute snapping open above her. The jet spiraled behind her, Victor scrambling to the cockpit, his screams lost to the roar as flames licked its wing. A fuel line ruptured in the chaos, the explosion a fireball lighting the sky. Lena floated down, her daughter clutched tight, the ocean a black mirror below, the camera catching the blast, 2 million viewers frozen as Victor's empire burned with him. She hit the water, icy waves swallowing her, and swam, her baby's cries a beacon as a Coast Guard chopper roared overhead, Jamal's signal from Seattle guiding them in. They hauled her aboard, wet and shaking, her daughter safe, the feed cutting as the burner died, but the world had seen. Dawn broke over Seattle, the chopper landing on a pier where Jamal waited, his ribs aching but his arms open as he pulled Lena close, her baby between them, tears streaking his bruised face. You did it, he whispered, and she nodded, her body a wreck but her spirit soaring, Victor's jet a wreckage sinking into the Pacific. His reign ended in a blaze she'd ignited. Tanya rushed up, her phone buzzing with news. Horizons collapsing, stocks tanked, feds raiding offices. Lena cradled her daughter, the restraining order void with Victor's death, her family whole again, the mistrial a distant scar. She'd won, her voice a hammer that shattered his throne, and the crowd on the pier cheered, strangers who'd watched her rise from nothing. But as she turned to leave, sirens wailed, cop cars screeching onto the scene, officers spilling out, their guns drawn, badges glinting under the rising sun. Lena Carter, you're under arrest, a captain barked, his voice hard, cuffs snapping on her wrists as Jamal shouted, What the hell? She's a hero. The captain's eyes were cold, his words a gut punch. Terrorism, destruction of property, endangering lives, FBI's orders. Lena froze, her daughter yanked from her arms again, handed to a social worker as the crowd roared, No! Tanya stepped in, her voice fierce. This is insane. She exposed him. But the cuffs tightened, the chopper's wreckage on every screen a double-edged sword. They dragged her to a squad car, the pier a chaos of shouts and flashing phones, her victory flipping into a cage as Jamal fought, held back by cops, his screams raw. "She saved us all!" The captain smirked, slamming the door, and Lena sat, her head high, the camera's ghost in her mind. Millions still behind her, but as the car pulled away, Tanya slipped through, her voice a whisper through the window. "I've got proof, Lena. Crash data, witnesses, it's self-defense. We're clearing you." The burner's last frames had uploaded, a zip file from Jamal's backup, showing Victor's attack, her leap, the truth alive again. She leaned back, the cuffs biting, her daughter's cries fading as the car rolled, but a smirk tugged her lips. Arrested a hero, she'd sparked a revolution. Horizon's ashes a testament to her fight. The world's rage a tide Victor couldn't stop, even in death. Protests flared nationwide. One brass, free Lena trending as Tanya raced to court. The zip file, a bomb to blow the case apart. The jet was gone, Victor with it. But Lena's war had lit a fire, her legacy roaring louder than any cell could silence. Lena Carter's journey in flight attendant insults and pours cold water on pregnant black woman for taking up legroom, but is a raw testament to resilience against systemic injustice. The first lesson screams loud. One voice can spark a revolution. Lena's defiance, from that soaked plane seat to Victor's crashing jet, proves that standing up even when the odds are stacked sky high can topple giants. Her story shows how everyday people, armed with nothing but truth and grit, can expose corruption that festers in power's shadows. Second, it's a brutal reminder that racism isn't just slurs or water dumped. It's a machine, grinding, through courts, cops, and corporations, ready to crush anyone who dares resist. Victor's empire thrived on silencing the vulnerable, but Lena flipped the script, turning his weapons against him. Third, unity matters. The millions who rallied behind justice for Lena weren't just viewers. They were her army, amplifying her fight when her hands were cuffed. It's a call to action. We're stronger together, pushing back against a system that bets on our silence. Finally, victory's cost is steep. Lena lost her peace, her baby for a time, and faced jail. Yet her sacrifice lit a fire for change. It's not about winning clean. It's about fighting dirty when the world won't play fair. Her smirk in that squad car, that's the lesson. Never break even when they think they've won. So, what's your takeaway? How far would you go to fight injustice in your own life? Drop a comment with your thoughts, hit like if Lena's courage moves you, and subscribe to catch more tales of grit shaking the world. Share this if you believe one spark can burn down a rotten system. Thanks for riding this roller coaster with us. Here's to more stories that fuel your fire and lift your spirit.